Hey you guys, I'm going to show you how to map real quick. First of all, how to set it up, and then how to compile a map, and then maybe I'll get into a couple like tips on mapping. So, and I use Hammer 3.4. There's a lot of other mapping programs that people have made, like Sledge. Um, there's another one I think called Jackhammer. I've used Sledge. It was a beta, but it had some good features. But I don't know if the guy that was developing it made it further. I'm not sure. Haven't kept up with that. Um, if he did, then if he worked out some of the bugs, I'd recommend something like that. Or I've heard good things about Jackhammer as well. Though if you want to use what used to be called Worldcraft, I think, or World Editor or something like that, then they change it to Hammer 3.4. So this is the program I use to make maps. So to set it up real quick, you go to Tools, Options, and then your game configuration and your build programs. These are the two things you use to set it up. So for your game configuration, you make a new one. You say add, or I don't know. You just create one at first called CS. If you're going to map for CS, and this is what I'm going to show you how to map for CS 1.6. So here, so the game data files, this is pointing to all the FGD files. So just basically I download as many FGD files that I can find for Counter-Strike, and I just pump them all in, point them all into this area. The FGDs give you all the entities, and the more you have, the merrier. I'm sure maybe one of them contains all of them, but I'm too lazy to do research into that. So just put all your FGDs pointing here, game data files. That's for your entities. Then texture format, whatever, WAD 3, Half-Life, TFC, Team Fortress, map type, Half-Life, Team Fortress, and okay, whatever. I make my default point entity a light and my default solid entity class a func wall. I don't use light entities in my map, but it's just what I've always used for the base entity, point entity, and then that func wall. I make a lot of func walls in my maps. I use that for like details. And then so game executable directory example C Half-Life. So this is the .exe, I think, or no, it's just the Half-Life. In this case, it points to where common Half-Life, where my Half-Life is. So you just browse to that for this one, and then paste or whatever. Yeah, browse to it, and then it'll save it in there. See, browse, and then find it, and then hit OK or whatever. I don't remember. I just every time I set up Hammer, I just figure it out real quick, and usually I probably do it wrong. Um, for your Half-Life mod directory, this is the Counter-Strike folder, so or the Counter-Strike, so .exe I believe or whatever. But mod directory, no, this is just the folder, so it lives in Counter-Strike folder in Half-Life. So you put that all the way down to this. You should be able to find that. And then for your game directory, didn't we already see that? Anyways, this one is also Counter-Strike, so the same as the mod directory. And then RMF directory, where you're going to put your maps that you're making. I put mine in my Counter-Strike folder, and put a folder in there called maps, and I put all my RMFs in there, so I guess that has to point to that. And then build programs, so this is the what's going to render your maps when you render them. I don't use the renderer in Counter-Strike, but it it works, but I just don't use it as my final compile because with my final compile I use a batch compiler, which has more options for like the rad settings and stuff, or it's just easier to use, and it can attach all your WAD files, which are your textures, into your map to where people I think they get that in file information, but the only way to get it is to like decompile the map. So uh, it's not a big deal. It just makes it easier. It's less files for the people to install when they try to play your map. No one wants to install your WAD file into their Counter-Strike folder. So anyways, for the map. So game executable, this is a program files, 86, whatever, Half-Life.exe. So it's not Counter-Strike exe or anything. It's a Half-Life executable, whatever. So you point to that. CSG exec. So these CSG, BSP, VIS, and RAD. These are the 4 that are all your compiler. So this one, let's see where it points. You'd go wherever your tools are stored. Mine are stored in a Half-Life Counter-Strike mapping VHLT tools Half-Life CSG.exe. So you just click on the CSG one. Then for the BSP, you click on the BSP tool. And for the VIS, and notice they're all they're somewhere in the Counter-Strike folder. I think they have to be in there for this to work. I'm not certain though. So I made folders in Counter-Strike folder to put this tools for that. And then VIS points to the VIS, and then RAD points to the RAD. Half-Life to RAD. 1, 2, 3, 4, and then place compiled maps in the directory before running the game, and you just put them in your Counter-Strike maps folder, because that's where you want your BSPs to be so that you can play the maps. So that's how you set up Hammer. And then let me show you something else. So to set up the batch compiler, so I just have a folder called mapping somewhere on my computer. Well, actually it's in the Counter-Strike folder in mapping, and then I have the batch compiler right here somewhere. Batch compiler. So you gotta open this and run as administrator, because it has to make changes on your computer. So it doesn't do that unless you right click and open and run as administrator. And then you have to go, this is gonna compile the final maps. So what you do before you get in here, in Hammer, you hit F9 on your keyboard, and then you just run. You don't even have to run RAD. Don't run. That's the lighting. Don't run that. Just run it like normal CSG, normal BSP, normal VIS. You can run RAD if you want to look at the lighting of your map, preliminary, but that's a final rendering almost. So I think so. Yeah, you don't want to. It's a playable level, and it puts a lot of wear and tear on your computer to constantly compile with lighting. So I just run no for many times that I'm checking for scale and other things, and then once I have a good scale and like layout and stuff, then I'll start working with lighting and stuff. So you can run this and then hit OK, and then after that, you in the batch compiler, you got to set it up. I already have it set up, so what I do is I just go file, file load preset, or open preset, and then I have a preset. So in this program, once you get it all set up, you can load your preset. I don't remember how I set it up, but these are all the stages I run. The CSG, BSP, VIS, RAD, those are all for the map, including lighting, and then rip entity and batch compile. So I don't do Half-Life and the Steam thing, so I guess this is just to run the map. I just manually run it afterwards. So CSG just says no WAD textures and WAD auto detect. These are the two you want clicked, because this will remove the WAD entity or the textures that you're using in Hammer from your map when you compile it. What else? BSP. I don't have anything checked on there. Nothing on VIS. And then on RAD, I put, for the final compiles, I'll put extra. I'll put bounce of 50. I'll put smooth 100. I think that can be between 0 and 180. And then, so it shows the range if you hover over them, so you can play with what's good, or what seems to be working good. Bounce will bounce the light across the map, so it'll light darker areas and make it more even lit. That's ideal for Counter-Strike when seeing the enemy makes it fun. Smooth just smoothens out the light edges, so instead of being a bunch of fragments, it makes them more straight and or blended well. And then extra is, you only want to use this when you're doing a final compile, but this will do some extra magic. And that's it. Then so what you do is you load the map right here, and for example, if I'm going to do FY Dive World, I don't do the BSP that I got from compiling it in Hammer. I run the FY Dive World.map file that it generated, and then I click run, and that's it. Then your map will be compiled. Any other things I can think of right now in Hammer? To set up your textures, you just go Tools, Options, Textures, Add WAD, and then add the WAD file textures that you made in Wally or Photoshop or both or whatever. So that's all I can think of right now. Comment if you have any questions. Thanks. Bye.